Okay, perfect. So this is a wonderful time to share for those who might not be aware about what the SCBNA or the Society for Conservation Biology in North America is. So the SCBNA is a regional group of the Global Society for Conservation Biology and is dedicated to advancing the science and practice of conserving biodiversity across North America. They support students and professionals through networking, mentorship, and skill building opportunities. And we hold a conference in North America every 2 years, the next one being in Milwaukee in 2026. If you're interested in learning more about our society or joining it, you can scan this QR code to check out our website. And I can send a link to the chat as well for those who may not be ready to scan the QR code. So today's webinar is hosted by the Student Affairs Committee of the SCBNA and as part of our ongoing commitment to professional development and science communication. And here, the mission for the SCBNA Student Affairs Committee, again, is to organize activities and events that really benefit students across their academic journeys and early career professionals in the field of conservation. And this webinar series is just part of that. So to introduce you all to the Student Affairs Committee, there is my face there. And if you are a SCBNA member or you'd like to work with me and the rest of this wonderful team here on developing student programming, please feel free to send me an email to the address below and we can add you to the email list. But a couple of quick messages before we get today's session really rolling here. If you're interested in learning Excel skills that you wish you knew 10 years ago, please join us at our upcoming webinar series or session as part of our series on July 23rd. And I'll share the registration link as well as some other helpful links in the chat. Oh, and speaking about registration, you can now register for SCBNA's first ever Conservation Education Forum. And the Eventbrite link that I'll share will offer more information about this very exciting two-day training. And another way to get involved is by contributing to the growing list of student opportunities that include scholarships and assistantships, fellowships for grads and postdocs, as well as research opportunities for undergrads and internships and granting opportunities. And this list is meant to provide opportunities that are not reliant on federal funding. So feel free to scan the QR codes to view the list of current opportunities that have been added and to also add and contribute some that you may be aware of that aren't already on the list. And I'll share some links to these Google Forms as well in the chat. So now, without further ado, we are very thrilled to welcome Brooke Wayland Alexander. Brooke is a communications professional who creates visual messaging around promotion and communication of science. Her work includes traditional and digital illustration, graphic design, and uses visual strategy to both clarify complex scientific concepts and engage different audiences. Brooke creates infographics, interpretive panels, branding and logos, and motion graphics, and has a certificate in science illustration from California State University, Monterey Bay, and a master's in life science communication from UW-Madison. We're very excited to learn from Brooke and her expertise and creative approach, and feel free to ask questions along the way. So thank you all again for being here, and please welcome Brooke Wayland Alexander. Let me stop sharing here.
Hi, thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. Yeah, that was a great intro. That's what I do for work. I've been doing science illustration and graphic design for the past 10 years on and off, self-employed and through some part-time work working for nonprofits. Most of my clients include nonprofits or researchers who are doing conservation or environmental science and helping to promote either their research or on the more tail end of science, promoting events and helping to influence audiences and really crafting research in a way that's deliverable to audiences. So my master's degree focused on the actual research and communication of science. As I started doing my work illustration and graphic design, I realized that it's really important to be able to tailor your message to your audience. And so that's why I went back for my master's and to get more of an understanding of how to do that and the marketing side of science, because as we know, science needs some marketing help. So I'm going to share my screen to get into my presentation here. Sorry, I'm going to tunnel vision. Okay. Is that not full screen?
Not quite yet. But yeah, if you click slideshow there, it should.
Thank you.
Perfect.
So yeah, today I'm going to show you some of my work that I've done over in the past, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about some work that I started in grad school, working with a professor, Brett Shaw, at the UW-Madison Life Sciences Communication Program. And that work is focused on what's called message testing. And I'll get into that a little bit more thoroughly. And then at the end of this presentation, I've got hopefully a little bit of time to do an activity with everyone where hopefully you'll get to kind of work on your own creative outlet and put it to the test here. So first, a little bit of my work. I do interpretive panels. I like to show this one because it shows what you can do with illustration versus photography or Google Earth imagery or drone photography. As you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but so the background here is, you can actually see the landmarks on the horizon. And then in the midground, there's not much going on here in the midground. So I was actually able to shrink this midground and then kind of blow up this foreground. So if you look on, I use Google Earth as a reference and then some drone photography, but compared to the Google Earth image, you've got a lot of middle ground here that I wasn't really interested in showing in the infographic. And then this nature facility down here is what I really wanted to highlight, which is so small. And then up here, you can't really see any of the landmarks. So I like to emphasize what you can do with illustration versus just imagery. This is another panel that I did recently for Rock River Coalition, which is a water conservation organization in Wisconsin. I'm from Wisconsin, so most of my work has been in Wisconsin. Just recently moved to Oregon, but this one was for a creekside restoration project. And people like to see kind of the progress of how things materialize, how this work materializes. So this is how it started. Just like a scribble here. Here's some plants. I knew we wanted to show the longer roots of native plants versus the shorter roots of the turf grass on the right. And so it starts really sloppy. And then this is one of the first interpretive panels that I've done digitally. Most of the time I do my interpretive panels in watercolor. Will you guys interrupt me if there are any questions? I don't, yeah, I'm sure you will. So then it finally turned out like this. I was also in my past the president for the Wisconsin chapter of the Society for Conservation Biology. So this is just some of the event marketing stuff that I got to do for the organization while I was in that position. That's a box turtle popping out of the box. I thought was pretty clever. And yeah. I do some logo and promotional graphic design. This is a design that I've been doing for a few years now. It's for the Wisconsin Annual Birdathon. Some more work for Rock River Coalition, which was an employer for a time, event marketing. And then my graphic design and branding that I've been doing for the North American Congress for Conservation Biology since 2016. This was our event in 2022. And I like doing conference branding. It's really fun because it's different every year, and it involves the whole package, going from the initial prospectus and call for submissions and into the logo and the program, and then even down to the badges and the swag. And so it's getting to do the whole conference is a pretty fun project. I also do a lot of infographics, and these are some that I've been working on more recently for the Society for Ecological Restoration. Sometimes they're just a lot of text, and it's about finding the best way to help parse that information using color coding or shapes or different text treatment to help pull out the information and make it a little bit more digestible. I like to show this one because it's one that didn't work out. These are all different versions of the same infographic that me and a client and I were working on. And it was supposed to show the transformation of natural ecosystems to degraded ecosystems. And it ended up not working out for the client because it was all too mechanical. It was, supposed to show kind of a natural phenomenon. And yeah, even though I wanted to show the concrete transformation and the actual amounts of habitat going from one type to another, this wasn't the way to do it. So it's back to the drawing board for this one. Even though I liked it a lot, I worked hard on trying to make it work, but it didn't work out. I also do sketches and a little bit of fine art stuff that I threw in here. That's my niece. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the message framing projects that I've done. So the message framing refers to variations in how information is conveyed and how that change in the message can affect an audience's perception of it and their attitudes and behavior. So there are a lot of things that go into the way a message is absorbed. There's the audience's values, the message environment, and here we're talking about the message features. So this is a classic example and a cartoon by Felix Schad. Climate change threatens our existence. Nobody cares. Climate change threatens our economy. Everybody cares. So the way you frame a message and what you decide to emphasize, or what's called make salient to your audience, it matters, and it changes how they react and perceive the information. This is a cartoon of a study that was done by P.L. Winter in 2006. It was basic trail signage in Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Park. And the researcher tested two different sign languages, nothing on the sign, just the same thing. One of them said, please stay on the established paths and trails. And the other one said, please don't go off the established paths and trails. And there was a significant difference in the number of visitors that went off trail. So the messaging that was more effective was the please don't go off the established paths and trails, with only 5% of hikers leaving the trail. And this might not necessarily be the same for every park everywhere. And that's kind of the point of message testing, is that it's important to see what values your audience has and how they're going to react to the messaging, which is what I got to do with some research projects. So one of the ones that I worked on with Brett Shaw, professor at UW-Madison, was on urban coyote populations. And so coyotes live in most urban landscapes in the US alongside people. And as their habitat continues to shrink, interactions have increased, causing tension and negative perceptions from people on coyotes. And obviously coyotes are ecologically important. They're carnivores and apex predators. But the increased negative interactions have caused some cities to call for eradicating programs. But obviously that's not going to work. It's not a solution since coyotes are such an important species. So instead, the option is to hopefully change residents' behavior. One of the things that people are nervous about is the attacks on dogs and the very, very occasional attack on a person. And so the solution hopefully is to, so obviously the way the media frames these events and animals in general influences how people perceive them. And in some of these headlines, people are given agency with their interactions with coyotes, and some of them they don't. So one of the goals for changing the attitude and behavior is to educate people and give them a little bit of empowerment to teach them that you can stay safe from coyotes using hazing behavior. That's waving your hands and yelling at them, and also respecting them, acknowledging that they are part of the ecosystem and they have a right to live alongside of us. Also protecting your pets and keeping them safe. So in this research paper by Kellert in 1984, they identified 10 different frames for how to communicate about animal relationships. And I'm just going to read through them. Brett Shaw and the other undergraduate researchers, master students working on this project, not undergrad, master students, were picked 4 of these different frames to test and evaluate against an audience to see which ones resonated the most. So they're naturalistic, which is interest in and affection for wildlife and the outdoors. There's ecological, concern for the environment as a system. Moralistic, concern for the right and wrong treatment of animals. Scientific, interest in the physical attributes and biological functioning. Aesthetic, interest in artistic and symbolic characteristics of animals. Humanistic, interest in strong affection for animals, pets mostly. Utilitarian, concern for the practical and material value of animals. Dominionistic, satisfaction derived from mastery and control, typically in sporting. Negativistic, an active avoidance of animals due to dislike or fear. And neutralistic orientation, a passive avoidance of animals due to indifference and lack of interest. I'm going to come out of my presentation here so that I can see your responses, because I'm going to ask you to try and evaluate which frame I depicted using visuals. I don't know if this is the best way to do this, but I'm just going to split screen here. And then I'll ask you to respond in the chat. Okay. Oh, so the way that these 4 different frames were evaluated was to test them on Facebook. So the researchers were evaluating cost per click, page likes, comments, and shares, which obviously these aren't necessarily direct indicators of attitude, but they're as close as we get, and they do indicate the amount of engagement, especially with comments. You can tell more the tone of the engagement on each of these different frames. And so my part in this project was to listen and understand the 4 different frames that the researchers were working with, and then to interpret that visually. So a lot of message testing is done on text and the verbiage of a message, and this visual message testing is kind of a newer thing that was being done at University of Wisconsin. So this is the first message frame. You can see there's a coyote and then a rabbit and some geese. And here I'm going to put it next to those values. I hope you can read them if they're not too small, but I can read them out loud. The text that accompanied this first frame was, coyotes are the top predators in urban areas. As an important part of the food web, coyotes feed on animals, including pest populations like rats and native populations like rabbits, to help maintain a balanced variety of wildlife in your area. So I'd love if you guys want to chat in and guess which frame. You can see your presentation notes and the answer. Oh no! Oh, that's cheating. Well, all right. It is ecological. Shoot, how do I hide my presentation notes? There we go. Okay, now you have to guess on the next one. This one, you can see there's a coyote in the foreground. There's just a person watering their lawn, another person with a stroller, and they're just chilling in the neighborhood. The text accompanying this one was, learn how to positively coexist with coyotes in your community. Most people in urban areas live close to coyotes their whole lives without knowing it. As native wildlife of Wisconsin, they have the right to coexist with us. Focus on like the right to coexist with us. And I'll let you guys guess. Yep. Yep, you guys got it, moralistic. This one shows the hazing behavior to scare off the coyote. And the accompanying text was, coyote-human conflicts are rare, but if you do find yourself encountering a coyote, you're encouraged to haze the animal by waving your arms, yelling, or clapping. Coyotes that live in urban areas have a natural fear of humans and will move away. I'll let you guess on this one. Yep, you guys got it. Nice participation. Okay, and then this was the last one. It shows a coyote singing along to the siren of an ambulance. And the text being, one interesting scientific fact about coyotes is that they will respond to sounds like sirens and train whistles in urban areas. People have learned that coyotes will howl when they hear train whistles or sirens from emergency vehicles. Yep, you guys got it. Nice. Yep, this one was scientific or scientistic. So these are the 4 frames that we ended up using in this research project. And the result was that the moralistic frame had significantly lower cost per click than the negativistic frame. So this was a more effective ad to run cost-wise. And the moralistic frame had significantly more page likes than the negativistic frame. So this moralistic one with the coyote standing in the community was possibly the most effective at engaging audiences and getting them to click in and understand more about the relationship between coyotes and themselves. Yes, I can share the research article. Can I do that I'll do it as a follow-up during the activity. I'll put it in the chat box. Thank you. So these are the 4 frames that I came up with. And you guys are doing great at participating. So I'd like to give you another question. So what do you see about these 4 frames that allowed us to test the message frames by just isolating the different concept in the different message frame? So essentially, what's similar about these 4? Mm-hmm. Yep. So you can see the neighborhood is similar houses. similar color palette for all 4 of them. Yeah. One of the other important things was the scale. So the coyote is about the same scale in each of these. The light direction is the same for each of these. The shadows are going the same direction. The hazing behavior one was a little bit difficult because even though there was going to be a person in it, I didn't want to show the person's face because research has shown that people are really attracted to seeing faces. And so I showed the back of the head instead so that didn't skew the engagement. Yeah, and then having the coyote in the same place on each of the frames was also important too. If I had moved the coyote to the upper left, for example, or even lower left, people might have seen it in a different, seen it not as immediately as seeing it in the lower right. Or I could have moved them all to the lower left. I chose to keep them all in the lower right. The lower right being like the last kind of take-home place that people see as we read left to right and end on the bottom right. But the important thing was keeping the coyote the same scale and in the same place for each of these. So this is something that I got better at the more, these are kind of the sketches that I put together for the 4 frames, showing the same coyote in the same spot. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna re-engage my screen here and not close that. Thank you for participating. So one of the other projects that I did for this was to test messaging around aquatic invasive species, specifically zebra mussels. So use of metaphor is really common in aquatic invasive species. Specifically, there's a lot of military metaphor, like stop the war on invasive carp. And so this has really strong emotional appeal. It's really a call to arms, but it also has some drawbacks. It can set up a good versus evil kind of frame. And we know that aquatic invasive species, any invasive species, they're not intentionally malicious. So the good versus evil framing is a little bit misleading. It can also set up like an us versus them mentality, and that doesn't give humans as much agency in their responsibility for helping to reduce movement of invasive species. There's also some nativist framing and frames invasive species as foreign and unwelcome, and this can create a sense of solidarity, but it can also come across as xenophobic or discriminatory. So it's important to test messaging to see if that's even really necessary given the risk of that messaging. I'm just going to play the beginning of this video. This is a video that I worked on with River Alliance, another water quality protection agent or organization in Wisconsin, and Rock River Coalition. And I'm just going to skip to, this is just to show an animation that I did for aquatic invasive species as a aside. I'll just skip the animation. The vocals got a little garbled in there on final production, but that was just to show an animation, related animation that I did. So again, I worked with Brett Shaw and Tim Campbell for this metaphor project, or newly Tim Campbell, who was with Sea Grant. And it was a similar project, this time testing more metaphors than different frames. This was the first one which is it's really cartoony, which was the militaristic frame. Shows the zebra mussels coming in on some battleships. And you can see even the text treatment is bold and kind of in your face. This was the nativist, showing the zebra mussels as really kind of creepy characters, not native, not welcome. And you can see how this one could be really divisive. Stop the Aquatic Hitchhikers is kind of its own campaign, but so we decided to feature this one. Not we, I was just the illustrator on this, but the Stop Zebra Mussels from Hitching a Ride was another metaphor that was tested. And the scientific metaphor, really straightforward, not shown as cartoons, just zebra mussels clogging up a boat propeller. And then lastly, a protective and nurturing kind of metaphor, calling on you to help protect your lakes. So these were the 5 metaphors. This one was done before the coyote one. And you can tell there's similar color palette, but I wasn't paying as much attention to some of the other details that we did in the coyote project. So I got better at this as we did more projects. But yeah, the results, neither the nativist or militaristic metaphor outperformed the science or other metaphors. So that was the key take home, that the militaristic metaphors, given the risk that they have to alienate audiences, aren't necessarily worth their communication. This is the last one I'll share. And this one, we worked with Scott Hirschberger and Brett Shaw again. And I did the concepts for this one and the sketching, and then I handed it off to a colleague of mine to do the final rendering for the project. His name's Jay Raskorshek, and I'll share his Instagram too, because he's a really brilliant illustrator to follow. Got to remember to do that during our activity. Okay, and I'm gonna go through this one and then we'll get to our activity. So these were the 4 different frames that we tested. These were my concept sketches for them. And the goal was to communicate about maple syrup in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is the 4th leading state in maple syrup production. And the goal of this campaign was to get people interested in becoming new maple syrup producers. About 90% of maple syrup trees, or 90% of sugar maple trees are on ideal stands for maple syrup production, but they remain untapped. So the goal was to really draw people in on this one. So the 4 different, less metaphors this time and more making one aspect or another more salient to the audience of maple syrup production. And my friend Jay did a really good job of keeping the same kind of concept, color palette, and balancing the text that was important to keep similar so that you can test and isolate the other factors of the message framing. So the first one was spending time with family and friends. And the second one, make your own natural sweetener. The third one, enjoy working the land, more the physicality. And the last one, enjoying time in nature, which is more naturalistic frame. So this is how they looked on social media. And the result was, this one, the researchers were able to parse the engagement really well and found a difference in age and a difference in gender. The physicality frame, which is the this one on the far right, the working the land one, was overall the most effective at garnering clicks and post reactions. But then, yeah, they broke it down into age groups and found that among the 55 plus, the food self-sufficiency frame garnered the most clicks. So the older population is going to be more interested in making their own food, and this kind of framing than the younger population. So we know that there's Facebook, this was tested on Facebook. So if the younger audiences aren't resonating with this make your own sweetener kind of messaging, then that's pivotal information for communicating and understanding that maybe targeting a younger audience is something to do on Instagram or another platform where the audience is younger, and using this physicality frame instead. Okay, we are to my exercise part of this. So I'm going to drop this link into the chat, and it will open, if you open that on your computer. Yes, hello, good. So I came up with this activity that I'm not sure how it'll go, but hopefully we'll see. We've got 20 minutes to come up with your solutions to this this message framing. So I just picked a topic that I wanted to care more about, and that I think could be tested to see what resonates best with people. I've never been on the research side of this. I've always been on the illustration side of this. So bear with me, but I did a little bit of research into tuna practices and fishing practices with tuna. And the thing that I wanted to narrow in on, the goal here was to come up with different ways to frame messaging about getting an audience to pay attention to labels and canned tuna. So when you're buying canned tuna, the important thing is to look for messaging, look for the different fishing techniques on the label. So you want to look for tuna that's pole caught, pole and line, troll caught, fad free, free school, or school caught. And that's the most important thing. You can read through the rest of these quick guides on tuna buying, but the important thing that I wanted to do the message framing around is paying attention to the label and these different fishing techniques. I didn't know what FAD was, so it's a fish aggregating device, and they can look like any one of these techniques, either like a natural object or a floating platform that's got either lines or netting underneath. And it's meant to attract salmon, but unfortunately there's a lot of bycatch associated with these because it also attracts sharks and turtles. So that's why these definitions, the pole caught, pole and line, and troll caught, and free school, meaning they're tracking, fishermen are tracking populations of fish instead of trying to attract them. And school caught, same thing. So again, terms to look for. I pulled this out of there's the citation for the paper down here. This paper showed different message framing for marine conservation communication. And so I just put this in there as kind of inspiration for thinking about different ways to frame this goal of getting people to look more at labels when they're purchasing. You'll recognize some of them that I went over for in the previous examples, like human versus nature relationship, and fear versus guilt and shame. There's a gain versus loss. Spatial versus temporal, which is it's difficult to do for people who are like in Wisconsin buying tuna. It's the ocean is very far away for me, so that's spatially very distant. So how do I frame it in a way that brings it closer to me and closer to home? And I pulled out some facts here about fad fishing and the importance of paying attention to the label and the amount of bycatch. And my task for everyone here is to come up with a visual to help impact audiences to take time to inspect tuna labels. So in the next, say, 15 minutes, I'm hoping people can spend a little bit of time with this information, or you can hop online and look for some more statistics, but don't focus in on the actual statistics. I would say focus on maybe identifying a frame or thinking about what would be the barriers to the audience or the consumers to taking the time to look at a label, and thinking about, you don't have to think about where this ad would necessarily be placed, but you could assume that it's going to be on Facebook or Instagram or some other social media to help people to, pay attention and think about this next time they're in the grocery store. If you wanted to say yours is going to be specifically placed somewhere else, that's totally fine with me. It's going to be at the store or billboard or whatever. So yeah, that's my challenge to you all, is to come up with a sketch. You don't have to be a brilliant artist to do this. I picked fish because fish are pretty easy to draw. So you can just draw them as the regular squiggle if that's what you want to do in your framing. And if you can come up with more than one, that's awesome, especially like one versus another. That's great. If you just come up with one, there's a good handful of us here. So by the end of this 15, 20 minutes, we'll have some examples of different message framing and a good way to think about how to communicate your research projects that you're doing and how to do it visually. So I'll stop talking. Oh, what I'd like you to do is do your sketch, whatever you're going to do, and then in the last couple minutes, I'll ask you to drop them into this presentation here. So let me know if you have questions, and I'm going to stop talking and stop sharing, I think, here. And I'm going to do it myself as well. So we'll see what we come up with. Does anybody have questions, either about this or about, we can kind of chat while people are brainstorming this project. Just let me know. I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah, draw by hand, take a photo, and then upload. Or if you, you can each claim your own, claim a deck or claim a slide in the deck. And if you'd rather like drop clip art into or drop photos, these are just for fun, just reference stuff, so you don't have to worry about copyright or anything. Just if you'd rather like, pull from the internet and modify a photo or overlay some photos, come up with accompanying text. It's really do what feels best for you. I'd like to encourage you to do drawing by hand because I think it's fun, but it's up to you. So think about different perspectives, different frames that you can do. I feel like I should put on like tuna swimming around background.
Some background music.
Yeah.
I just noticed that I'd had to request access to edit. I don't know if that's just me or not, but you might have to give editing permission for people to upload images on the slides.
Let's see. I thought I could just, anyone with the, oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope people are getting ideas. Maybe just a couple more minutes, hopefully, to dump them somewhere in the slide deck. Then we can kind of go through and take a look at them.
Maybe just as we're wrapping up those drawings and illustrations, could you share the link to the research paper, I think it was, and I believe,
Oh, yes.
yeah, hoping to link an Instagram to one of your colleagues.
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Thank you for sharing.
Paige, thanks. I use my iPad and app called Procreate, and I just use my Apple Pencil, and that's what I do to get started. And I do the draft, and then I bring it into Adobe Illustrator to clean everything up. Yeah. The Coyote paper was not actually ever published, unfortunately. So it went through the research process and some results, but it was never formally published. And then what's the other one that I showed? Oh, the maple syrup one I'll share too. Okay, cool. We got some going. Let's just take a quick look through these together. And yeah, thank you guys so much for doing this exercise and for sharing. I'm going to share my screen here so we can look at these together. Okay, this one was mine, actually. And I wanted to show both a positive consumer and a negative consumer. And so the positive consumer on the left being somebody that selected the right product and has kept the bycatch out of their cart. And this would be pretty cartoony, I think, and showing like happy fish on the left, and then more of a negative frame with somebody who chose a fad fishing technique on their canned tuna on the right. Yeah. Awesome use of check out the label. Take a look at this. Look at how your tuna was caught and support sustainable fisheries. Jump in if anybody wants to talk about theirs. Otherwise, I'll just kind of look at them with you. I like this one. It could be, you could do a positive and negative test on it too. If you did pole caught is better, you test this version and then test another version that says fad caught, avoid fad caught fishing with a a different label and a red X on it or something. Cool. Thanks for sharing. Oh, cool. This one's a very social one. Values and emotional. Okay. So fad-free tuna, you've got happy turtles, happy dolphin, regular tuna, fad tuna, you've got sad fish. I like their X's in the eyes. Nice social. Oh my God, I can't believe you don't buy fad-free tuna. Very cool. Nice. This one's showing, yeah, pole caught, just an illustration of pole caught being positive view, and then happy fish, and then the net caught and fad caught being negative view. Perfect, simple, awesome. Nice. Really great person here. Is that tuna truly sustainable? Look for, I like the blow up view, focusing on the label. Nice. Fish are friends and food. Make sure your canned tuna is right catch. Nice. And that's a very moralistic frame right there. Awesome sketch. Check a label, save an ocean. That's nice. It plays on the time. It doesn't take long to check a label. It's catchy. Nice. Cool, there's multiple in here. Concerned about ocean harvest, you can make a difference. Very empowering frame. Stop devouring our oceans. Pole caught tuna, keep fish swimming. Nice. There's an ocean of impact in your hands. Pole caught tuna, keep our waters alive. This is nice. These are very all empowering frames. So it would be interesting to test this empowering frame versus another empowering frame. Choose albacore caught with a troll or pole to sit light on the earth. Nice use of scale. That's, I think you were thinking about spatial frames too on this one, bringing it closer to you. Oh, nice metaphor. Fad free is the way to be. Nice, and no fad fishing. You guys, thanks so much for participating in this. I hope it gave you a chance to um, think about different ways to frame a message, and hopefully you can apply this to the work that you're doing and think about different ways to communicate your work. And yeah, thanks. Thanks, Anna. I'm going to stop sharing here. I don't know if we have any other wrap up to do or any last fad free isn't a fad. Yep.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you guys for participating. I know that's kind of a hard thing and a hard ask. So good work.
Yeah, we have a room full of illustrators here, definitely. Yeah, this was really great, and
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you prepared this for us and people were willing to participate. We have a few more minutes for questions if anybody has any for Brooke.
Welcome.
I have a quick one if while people are maybe thinking of theirs. As someone who comes from a natural science background, and there is a real push I'm seeing for people to create more engaging ways to communicate information and presentations. What advice do you have to make science more visually appealing without oversimplifying content?
Mm. Yeah, there's definitely a balance and a trade off between making it more engaging and capturing all of the details and information. Um, yeah, I think it's really hard for researchers to be able to do all the things. So asking you to step into that position of being a communicator too is a whole different skill set to learn how to do. Um, so I think one of the cool things that I've gotten the chance to do is to work with researchers on their projects, but that's always hard to do when you're building it into the tail end of your project when you're on the communication side. So I think thinking ahead on the very beginning of your project and thinking about, I know, like writing into grants, you kind of have to do that now about how you're going to end up communicating, but thinking about potentially talking to a science illustrator or graphic designer or somebody who might be able to help you think about your project. And there's also resources at a lot of universities. I know UW-Madison has a design lab resource where you can go and talk to them about your project and they can give you feedback on the graphic design. So sometimes just talking to a third party and explaining your research is a good way to help, even like visually, if you can think through, here's my concept, here are my concepts for my visual. How does this resonate with you? Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Great advice. There are a couple questions in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that you went to the CSU illustration program, the dream of mine. Out of curiosity, do you mind sharing any tips on getting into this program and how to afford it? What other illustration training or programs do you recommend for somebody who is mainly self-taught? Well, the California State University Monterey Bay program was a really good program for me. And I know the program director actually now was in my cohort, and he's doing an amazing job with the program. So I highly recommend it. My undergrad was in environmental science, and so getting a crash course in illustration techniques and graphic design was really important for me. And how to afford it. Yeah, just living in California alone is pretty expensive, and Monterey Bay is expensive. So I feel you on that. I'm not sure what kind of financial aid is available for the program, but I would really recommend it. There's not very many actual science illustration programs. I think there's another one in Seattle that's like a continuing education program. There's a lot of medical illustration where you might learn some of the same techniques, but the CSUMB program is really unique and a really good program. For getting into it, yeah, just practice working on your portfolio, producing as much work as you can so that when you get ready to put together your portfolio, then thank you. Exeter has one too. Cool. then you can kind of cull down and pick your best options. How do you feel about Canva and other user-friendly tools as a tool for researchers or others trying to communicate science to the public? That is, if they don't have the resources to hire an expert. I'm all about Canva, actually. The nonprofits that I work for, they can't always afford a graphic designer, or Canvas really helps you kind of recycle your resources too. So instead of if you're working with a graphic designer, it's great to ask them to produce their work in a way that can be recycled. So like putting it into separate layers instead of just having one final graphic design piece, like that initial interpretive panel that I showed you with the heritage site, the natural resource facility. That layer could be popped off so that they can use that in other communication pieces. So trying to make graphic designers' work go as far as possible for you is key. And then, yeah, I'm about using Canva. There's a lot of resources on Canva and free stuff. The other, if you're doing like logo infographic kind of stuff, the other website that I use sometimes is FreePic. And it's a subscription-based program, but it's a good one for finding logos and different assets that you can kind of put together into your own infographic or whatever you're working on.
Noah has a question.
Yeah, hi. On the subject of working for nonprofits and whatnot, I currently work as a graphic designer for a marketing SaaS company that specifically works with nonprofits. But in terms of freelancing, I'm not really sure how to begin getting into that whole side of things. Going from having, a company, a more corporate type job to being out on your own is really intimidating. If you were like starting over in the current, I guess, media scenario with social media and everything, like how would you approach getting clients? How would you approach getting your name out there and everything?
Oh, it's tough. Like I have colleagues that have held down full-time self-employment, but I've never been able to reach a full-time self-employment with my client work. It's really hard to be doing the marketing of all of your work because that's like a whole another job. But it's going slow and it's by word of mouth, I think. So most of my projects that I've gotten is working with a researcher who tells another researcher, hey, I worked with this person and they were good. So, and I think so as you go forward, getting one or two clients, making sure that you do a good job for them, and then asking them to spread your name out to, share the good word about your work. And I think LinkedIn is a probably good resource. Having people actually endorse you on LinkedIn, I think has worked a little bit for me. And then making sure you share your work. People love to see the progress of your work too. So keeping people, interested in what you're doing, and consistency on social media is key. I'm not the best at that, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good luck.
Any other questions for Brooke? I don't know if Bernie, if you have any final words for this session at all.
Hi, everyone. I do not. I just wanted to thank Brooke again for preparing for today's session. This has been great. And I also wanted to thank everyone for attending. As always, you'll get an email after the session with some follow-up information and a post-event survey. So if you can fill that out, that would be great.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for everyone for participating. You were great.